And here we are. Welcome back to the Red Shirt Sophomore, where we never sit out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. What is going on? Here we are again. More postseason stuff. Yes, it's technically the postseason. Yes, technically postseason. We're gonna be posting this, I believe, Monday. I believe the national championship game will be on tonight if you're watching this. But here's the thing: to us, it's still the postseason. It's not the offseason yet. Okay, these were all postseason moves. We're gonna be talking transfer portal. We're gonna be touching coaching carousel. What we've been doing, if you haven't been following along, three coaches we're gonna look into: Jeff Choate, Scotty Walden, Spencer Danielson. Right, a lot of stuff happening out there in the West. We're all over it. We did the research. We've looked into these coaches. We have our thoughts, grades, etc., coaching staff for all these schools. And we're also going to be talking about 10 specific players in the portal as well. All most of whom actually have already committed to schools. A lot of people that have entered the portal have committed. And we're going to be talking about fit in these schools. We're going to be talking about what these guys value or what value they bring to these teams and what value these other teams that they left are missing as well. Uh CD, what's going on?
Nothing much. We thank you guys for watching, clicking in on our video, and joining us today. Remember to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content, if you haven't already. We appreciate our channel is growing, but we always love the support that you guys are giving us, and that means a lot to us. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about these. We feel like we haven't been here in a while doing our transport. We've been so busy with the bowl games, and the national championship, and all that other stuff. And yeah, I can't wait to get into some of these moves. And it's so hopeful for a lot of these programs and these teams that are just like everything, just they're trying to make sense of it all. And so hopefully we're here to help you guys with that.
Yeah, this is episode 51. We didn't mention it last time, but we're 50 episodes into this thing. So it's pretty awesome. But we've come a long way. It's been 6 months since we started doing it. We appreciate you guys' support, like CD said. All right, let's get into it, shall we? First thing, let's talk Jeff Choate. Nevada hires Jeff Choate. Who is he? Former defensive coordinator, co-defensive coordinator at Texas. Previously, before that, he was the head coach at Montana State. He's been all across the West, though. He's actually been everywhere. He was at Washington, he was at Florida, Washington State, Boise State, Utah State. He's kind of been everywhere, right? But so what's he done so far since he's been in as a coach? See, I'll let you talk about his staff. Actually, he's brought in a little bit. I know that's your thing.
And that's the staff. Well, he's obviously had to hire a lot of things. There was only one mainstay from the previous staff, and that was Virgil Green. You might know that name if you are a tight end fan or an NFL fan. He
Hey,
played 10
yeah.
years for the Broncos and some other teams as well. Very, very respected guy. Of course, he's going to keep him there. He's a Nevada guy himself through and through. Obviously, big time, retainment for Jeff Choate. Um,
Choke.
Jeff Choate as well. I did that right in the pre-video, but yeah, and then they got some guys, Brian Armstrong on the O line. So a lot of Choate stuff, it was all about keeping guys he knows personally, and the guys he's worked with before, whether he's coached them or whether he's coached with them at times in different overlaps. Um, with that, actually, the exception is Virgil Green. But obviously he knows all about him as a Nevada guy himself. Brian Armstrong, the O line coach, I love this. He was at Montana State with Choate all 5 seasons for there, and I'm in their offensive coordinator. He was their O line coach at Fresno State this past year. Very good guy. Obviously, we got to send our thoughts and prayers out to Matt Lubbock. He's their offensive coordinator. Hire. He's a guy battling leukemia right now. Hopefully, everything works out well with them. Obviously, prayers up to him and his family, and he's going to do great. He's going to battle it through it, but obviously, very scary situation. But they're much bigger than football. But for the time being, it'll be Mike Lynch and David Gilbertson, kind of doing offense coordinator, running back, quarterback, wide receiver kind of stuff there. James Price as well in that kind of mix. On the offensive staff, and it's for the defense, you're gonna have Kane Ione, right? He was the DC for Choate in Montana State. Obviously, Choate himself is a defense coordinator, very much experience there. Um, Ione was just at Boise State, so he's got that Mountain West experience, which is very important in this scenario. And then to round it out, Parker Henry, another guy, special teams coordinator that I do really like. He played under Choate at Washington State back when he was there under Mike Leach. Is another guy I really do like. I do like his coaching staff. I think he was able to build one, and that stems from the people he was able to learn under, right? The coaches that he got through, going all the way back to Boise State with Chris Peterson, right? Then it was Mike Leach in Washington State, back with Chris Peterson again at Washington. Went over to Will Muschamp in Florida. I don't know, Will Muschamp was not the most successful guy at Florida, but he's very, very smart defensively. Ask Kirby Smart there. His defenses at Georgia.
Correct.
And then also Steve Sarkisian, obviously, this past couple seasons at Texas. And so it's been, I think I really love the hire because he's had success everywhere he's been defensively, right? And he's also had a lot of success as a head coach at a place like Montana State, which I love there, making the FCS playoffs and making a little run in 2019 with his final year there.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've followed that FCS football for the last couple of years, you would know that Montana State is really good. But when Jeff Choate got there, they really worked. They improved every single year that he got there. And when he left that program, right, Brett Vision, he comes in and all of a sudden it's booming and popping. And so Jeff Choate, I think, left that program at 28 and 22, something like that. And then his replacement is now 24 and 5 because Choate left that program in such a good spot. So I don't think that he still has head coaching experience. I don't think that people look at that record and maybe, oh, he was only 20 and 22 at Montana State. It's like, well, he kind of put that program in a way better spot. He built it up, had talent there when he left. He left to go take a promotion at Texas as a defensive coordinator. Like that was a promotion to him. He was getting paid a lot more. Still is not getting paid a ton to be at Nevada. I know you had some details on his contract a little bit that you wanted to share.
Yeah, so it's going to be so it's 5 year, $5.7 million contract, which for Nevada is a big time contract, right? In their history, he is obviously the highest paid coach of all time, which is good for him, good for Choate and his family. They're still ninth out of the 11 coaches that actually list their salaries. Air Force, this is Troy Calhoun's, is the only unknown, but we do assume that he's pretty well up there, and he does well for himself there. So 10 out of 12 is not where you want to be coaching salary wise, uh, coaching assistant coordinators, coaching pool, and all that other stuff. That's not where you want to be able to compete in today's game. But guess what? I believe in Choate and his ability to do that. Real quick, you mentioned Montana State. Now he finished his last 2 seasons there 19 and 9. Right. That if that's like it's gonna take a couple years here at Nevada. I mean, they just went 4 and 20 the past 2 years. It's gonna take a couple years. Ken Wilson didn't get that time. Right. We'll see.
Which I thought he would. I mean, when Jay Norvell left, that roster was decimated. It was decimated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had guys like Romeo Dobbs off to the NFL. You had guys like Clay Millen at quarterback. He left. You had guys like Dan Henley at linebacker. He left to go to Washington State. A guy like Torrey Horton, who's one of the best wide receivers in college football. He left to go to Colorado State. I mean, it was a mess of a roster when Ken Wilson got there.
Well, and Wilson spent almost 22 years there at Nevada himself before being a head coach. Right, come back in 2022. And so yeah, if anyone was going to get the time to wait there and see if it actually works, it would have been him. But obviously the administration there didn't believe in him, and they made a move, and they felt they could get Choate. Then
yeah, I will say that the recruiting classes, like what is the expectation in Nevada, right? And why did Ken Wilson get fired? Okay. This program has not been, despite having actual talent in state, right? They have not, and you're right there with California too. You can scrape up a pretty decent class as a G5 team if you are near California. Top 85 is kind of where they've been, and with Ken Wilson, they weren't even top 85, right? So that was an issue. So I can understand like getting ahead of that. If you don't believe in a guy, if your administration doesn't believe in a guy, get rid of him and bring in someone that can maybe recruit a little bit better. I don't know if Jeff Choate can recruit at the FBS level nowadays really highly, but you know what? He's gonna have to a little bit, especially like if Barry Odom has UNLV cooking it the way it does, right? What are the expectations with Nevada? It's, I guess a bowl game is kind of your expectation. If you're a fan, you can kind of probably expect a bowl game from Nevada, right? Competing in the Mountain West, which is not necessarily the best conference out there. Win some of those games against bottom feeders, but the reality is like you yourself are a bottom feeder, especially in the situation that the program is in right now. You're a bottom feeder, right? You were paying your coach only $1.1 million, which yeah, sure, that's a lot of money, but not in the grand scheme of things for college football coaches at all, especially in the Mountain West. So that's tough. It's hard to compete when you don't have the resources that some of these other schools have. And you would think Nevada as a state school in the state of Nevada, where you have okay talent. Yeah, you sure you're not going to land the 5-star from Bishop Gorman. Sure, you're not going to do that. But there are other talented players in the state of Nevada and California that you can snag.
Well, it's tough though because they are in northern Nevada, so a little bit less talent up there. Obviously, not as far, not as close to Las Vegas where UNLV is. Right, you look at their rivals. Why was Ken Wilson fired? The rivals, UNLV, Barry Odom went in there right away and won very well, very successful. Boise State obviously doing their thing, just won the Mountain West with an interim head coach. San Jose State obviously playing pretty darn well. We love how they're clicking, when that program's doing, and then Fresno State as well. I mean, they're continuously a powerhouse in the Mountain West. It's tough. It's tough to compete with those things and to give your coach these unfair expectations when they just don't have the resources to, right? And I don't know what it is. I don't know what the problem there is at Nevada administratively, talent wise, coaching wise. Maybe Choate needs to go in there and push all the right buttons, and then maybe they get it done there. But yeah, it's frustrating to see because in this transport era, you have to be getting all the rejects from the from the Pac-12, or now that they're all going to Big 12, but you have to be getting guys that want to come back locally to the West Coast, and you have to be like first ones at the door, like, hey, we missed you in high school,
Keep
you
those
overlooked us,
or
but
keep those relationships that you had, guys that maybe you were the first one to offer, and then all of a sudden UCLA comes in and offers them.
well, you
Keep
get
those
it
relationships.
exactly, get in early, and even if you know you have no chance to win this recruitment, keep battling, keep getting on know the kid, keep getting for them to know you and whatnot, and so when he does enter the portal, his first thing is, hey, Nevada, let me call them. Let me call Choate and staff there and see what he can do. But yeah, you mentioned the recruiting there has not been what it is. And unfortunately, like the the program's not in a great spot talent wise. I don't think. I think they do have a long ways to go to be competing in the Mountain West for a bowl game, because I do think that is the standard there is to be at least making bowl games once you get clicking. It's going to take a couple years. Hopefully, they give him that time. I don't know how short that leash is. I do assume the buyout he would have had a lot of guarantees in his contract and whatnot,
Well, yeah, it is guaranteed. It's all his entire contract's guaranteed, or something like that,
which is I
or
guess
just $1 million at least is guaranteed. Like, I think a lot of it's guaranteed. I think they want to believe in him, right? They want to believe in him. So I'm all right with that. In terms of grades, what kind of grade am I giving Choate? Well, we talk about we can't give grades without expectations. We talked about our expectations a little bit. A bowl game and a top 85 recruiting class, right? Can he meet those? I'd give him a B, like a B for if you can meet expectations. A, if you exceed expectations. C, if you can't meet those expectations. I think Jeff Choate, if you give him enough time, can meet those expectations, right? I think the resources are pretty limited. I don't have a ton of knowledge about him as a recruiter. I know he's been on the West Coast, so he knows the landscape a little bit. He knows his high schools. I'll give it a B. I'll give it a solid B. And Nevada, you're not going to get a ton of high name, high profile coaches to come in there. You know, I think there's some other hires that, we'll talk about one particularly in a little bit, but there are other hires that you could have made. Like, if you want someone who's like an innovator on the offensive side of the ball, you kind of need to go younger. But I think Nevada was like, let me get someone who's experienced with head coaching. Someone who's a little bit older, not too much older. He's not super old, but someone that you can come in and you know that they're going to be well coached. Give them a chance. So just my assumption though is if they're giving him the money, they're going to give him the time. So I think he can meet expectations. I'll give it a solid B.
I do believe so as well. I'll stick with a B there. I think in year 3, you really look him to turn around, make a bowl game, start recruiting well, utilizing the transfer portal and all that comes with it. It obviously, but it shows just the state of this program when Jay Norvell has a couple successful years and then leaves to Colorado State, and that's because you're not paying your coaches in large part, right? Or the resources aren't there, and he knows it. And Jay Norvell having some success at Colorado State at times, and yeah, if Choate wins a couple games, has a nice couple seasons, you gotta somehow retain him. I don't know if he pops off that much, if he's gonna get some Power 5 interest, then maybe that's hard to get him to keep him in the boat there. But if you're just getting lured away from another Mountain West Conference team, that's alarming. That's very frustrating for Nevada fans and the players there for sure. But I believe in Chota. I think he's put together a good staff. I think he'll get it done. I love his experience. You mentioned everything on the West Coast or in the west of the Mississippi. He's done a great job, and I think that matters so much when you're talking about, relationships and just knowing the area, knowing the culture and the style of football there with some Mountain West success there. He saw Chris Peterson really take Boise State to another level. And I think he hopes to do the same here with Nevada.
Speaking of Boise State, let's talk Boise State. Who did they hire as their head coach? Yeah, none other than their interim head coach they had for the last 4 games, Spencer Danielson. Now, I think there's a lot of thoughts on this. There's a lot of moving parts. It's what's crazy though is that I'm sure Boise State fans that are watching this, and I'm sure a couple of you are culprits of this. Some of you wanted Spencer Danielson fired. As your defensive coordinator, you wanted him fired. He was not performing well at all this year. In fact, he stunk. But guess what? He comes in, fills in as head coach, wins the last 3 games of the year. You win the Mountain West, which is crazy.
You're kind of stuck with him.
And so it's like you have this interim head coach who ended up winning your conference championship. It's like, would they have also won their conference championship with Andy Avalos? I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, they did it, and you lose the bowl game because you had your third string quarterback and missing some guys, but here's the thing. What are the expectations at Boise State? They're high. They're very, 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 very high. Andy Avalos, I mean, his team just won the Mountain West, right? But here's the thing. It's not always enough. Now, did the administration have the hindsight? Do we have the benefit of hindsight? Like, did we know that Boise State was going to win? At the time that he was fired, I think Boise State was, what, 5-5? And, they were not atop of the Mountain West yet. They had a chance, but it was like, this is just such a weird situation. I'm going to say, like, I think that there were possibly better guys out there if they had, like, looked, if they had really done their due diligence. But here's the thing. Spencer Danielson is a Boise State guy through and through. Now it's not his alma mater, right? But he's been in the last 8 years. He's been there. He's worked up the ranks the last 8 years. So he has been there. He knows the program. He knows what it looks like when it's successful. He knows what it looks like when it's not successful. So if there is anyone that can kind of get back to the Brian Harsin, beginning of the Brian Harsin tenure, the Chris Peterson tenure, it would be potentially Spencer Danielson. I don't know. So for me, this is like good and bad. I don't have a ton of opinions on this because I don't know what Spencer Danielson's going to look like as a head coach. Like, how is he going to like handle recruiting? Like, what does his staff look like? It's like there's a ton of questions I think to be answered. You lose a guy like Taylor Green in the portal, but you do keep, of course, Mad Max, who was competing for that starting quarterback position, who actually did pretty good. You still have Ashton Janty, probably the best, or one of the best, if not the best, running backs in college football. Your defense was pretty not great this year, but it showed up when it needed to in some big games down the stretch. So it's just very, very, very interesting. So the expectation, it's really 9-10 wins every year, and a
Mountain West champions
Mountain
every
West
other year, or at least
championships,
being in there competing.
top 60 recruiting classes. I mean, you lose a guy like Gatlin Bear. Sure. I mean, Oregon, he'll do great at Oregon or Ohio State or Michigan or wherever he ends up. It's tough to lose players like that. Of course, it's going to happen with coaching staff changeover or turnover, but it's kind of tough. I don't know. He's in a weird spot right now. He is in a weird spot. There's a lot expected of him because there is a lot of continuity with that, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Do you have any thoughts on staff that he's going to have there? Is it going to be the same staff? Is it going to be,
I
what's it going to
don't.
look like?
It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a little bit similar. I mean, he's been there, right? It was an internal promotion to begin with, and then he just kind of kept the job. It's a very fluid transition for him to be in there. I do think it was a little bit, almost like not easy, but like it was just kind of there, and it just kind of happened. You mentioned it. I wouldn't call it lazy because obviously I think he deserved the job for sure. But I think there were some other qualified candidates you at least could have really, really considered. And I know that Boise State job is one of that's very, very high up there, especially in the Mountain West. Bush Hampton, I love as the OC. He's a guy that was at that played at Boise State right back in 2004, 2008, coached under Chris Peterson and others as well. He's a really good guy. He was there at Washington when they had Jacob Eason and some others there, really balling out on the offensive side of football. I do like him. I don't know if they're going to win the portal there in the short term with the quarterback position. You have Maddox Madison, right? He's been there, a freshman that came in and spelled Taylor Green at times and almost started over him a couple games. It was really interesting there what they handled there, but he's off to Arkansas, like you mentioned. But honestly, everyone else they're kind of keeping. I mean, McAllister's been gone for a couple weeks now, but everyone else is kind of there, and it should be kind of run it back and rip it through the Mountain West again next year. I do think the nice part about this hire is we talked about there's a couple different scenarios that these new coaches are going into, right? You mentioned like teams that fired a coach because they were bad and had to come in and rebuild a roster like Nevada, we just talked about. Or you got a coach where you got to replace a guy that had a lot of success and moved up the ranks, like at Tulane, where they got to hire John Sumrall to replace Willie Fritz because of the success he's had there. Two much different scenarios and programs you're walking into, both with their unique challenges, but it's also a lot different. But here you have a guy that was interim coach and is having success and able to come in there, keep the roster together, keep coaching staff together, keep the recruiting class together, and now really will focus on getting the guys signed on the dotted line, which he did a good job of. Everyone other than Gatlin Bear, which we kind of saw that coming for a while now. No surprises there, but obviously they'll have their picks in the portal of a lot of guys as well. You retain a guy like Ashton Jeanty, massive for you there. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to get me super excited for this hire, but also like I think the floor is pretty high there, and the floor at Boise State is already pretty darn high with the talent level you have there in the Mountain West. If you can get a guy that continues to maximize that talent that's there, like you mentioned, I don't know how he's going to be recruiting and how he's going to be getting transfer portal guys. They're 80th with their class as it's currently constructed right now. They got a great guy out of the JUCO ranks, Daylon Metoyer, an interior lineman there that they're really high on that Banerson and company was able to keep on them, keep on their side. But yeah, I don't know. It kind of I don't know. I don't know. I like it. It doesn't don't love it. Don't get me super excited. But at the same time, like they won with him. They played the best football all year under him, and I'm sure he's going to do well at Boise State.
Yeah, to me though, it was kind of a quote unquote down year in the Mountain West, I think. I mean, when San Diego State is not clicking, that kind of inherently means that the Mountain West is a little bit down. I I just think like the clock is ticking, right? Like Sean Lewis is over there at San Diego State. I think Jay Norvell's doing some good things at Colorado State. San Jose State's looked good the last several years. Troy Calhoun's gonna be a dude. I mean, just like they need to capitalize in these next couple years. Like to me, my expectation is that this team competes for another Mountain West championship next year immediately, right? I mean, Barry Odom, UNLV. I mean, just you got some good coaches, I feel like, in the Mountain West for next year in these next couple of years. So to me, the clock is ticking. And I just don't know. Like if your expectations 9, 10 wins a year, right? And you start scheduling some difficult out of conferences, especially with the 12-man playoff, right? It's like you can get a nice, really good out of conference win and then do well in the Mountain West. Like that's how you get into the
There's a
playoffs.
group of five spot, isn't there? That 12 seed's a group of five spot.
Yes, but like it's going to require you playing a pretty tough out of conference game, and I think these G5 coaches are going to start doing that. Like, not that it's going to be like Boise State. I don't think would schedule Alabama necessarily or Ohio State, but they'll start scheduling some tough ones. And like,
Go get Arkansas. Go get Arizona State. Go get teams like that you can compete with and win these games.
yeah, I mean, so my expectation, like it's 9, 10 wins, Mountain West championship, yada yada yada. We talked about it. Top 65 recruiting class. Can Spencer Danielson do it? Yes. Do I believe in him to do it? Like to be the guy for Boise State? I don't know that I do. So I'll give this one a B minus. I almost gave it a C plus for laziness. I just think that there were some other guys that they could have done their due diligence on, but they clearly like Spencer Danielson, and I'm not inside that program, so the reality is they might have had their eyes on him for a while now. But I like Boise State fans, correct me if I'm wrong, like you were clamoring for this man to get fired like mid season, like you were clamoring for him to get fired. So what happened in that time? He coached 3 games, I guess, and all of a sudden he's the guy. So I don't know. I don't know. You tell me, fans. Here's this. I'll go C plus then. I'll go C plus. I'm talking myself into it. I'll give this one a C plus.
I'll be a little bit more generous. I'll stick with a B minus there. I think it's I think he can he'll just fall just short of expectations, or he'll meet expectations, not consistently, but every once in a while. I do think like something I didn't mention with Nevada and Jeff Choate, which I meant to do, was the addition of Washington State and Oregon State is gonna hurt you. And it hurts more so teams like Nevada, where I think Boise State's gonna have in a couple years, it's gonna have similar talent level to Oregon State and to Washington State. But like it hurts those teams, and it's an extra half a loss or loss to your schedule every year, which is really tough for you. And next year, in the short term, obviously, you'd love to see them compete in the Mountain West. They do have to play Oregon State. They do have to play Washington State. I kind of don't know exactly how they're going to do with the conference championships and all that other stuff. I don't know if Oregon State and Washington State can play for the conference championship. Um,
I don't know.
I think we'll figure that out when we get there. But they get Oregon. They go to Oregon in week 2 there, so that'll be tough, obviously, for Boise State after they went to see Washington this year and played obviously a damn good football team and lost pretty badly. But yeah, it's they I don't know. You mentioned Mountain West. You got to be up in the top 2, top 3 every year. You got to start recruiting well, better than you did this year, which I'm sure you will, and see where it goes from there. Yeah, I think B minus is where it'll be at, and but also like this was such a big time hire for them. This was you mentioned that the 12-team playoff. Like this is the hire you had to get right to make the playoffs
Yeah.
and to do some things and to really elevate your program. You want to talk about the future of college football? Nobody knows what all these conferences are going to be doing. Boise State doesn't want to be left behind in the Mountain West, right? Like if you continue to win football games, you continue to win and make the playoffs and compete in some of these games. Like that's that's a good sign for you to be able to move up and to eventually like keep your head above water there with everyone else sinking. So this is a big time hire. Doesn't get me super excited. It is what it is. B minus. I'm sure he'll win, but I don't know if he can really elevate that program back to the Peterson, back to the Brian Harsin, and really be the power of the group of 5.
Let's talk about one of the most interesting hires of this entire cycle. Let's talk about Scotty Walden. And I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that most of you do not know who Scotty Walden is. And I think that was the reaction for a lot of people when UTEP hired Scotty Walden. Who is Scotty Walden? Who is this guy? This guy looks like a high school. What are we talking about here? Well, I think we're kind of dealing with someone who I think you're going to hear about in the next couple of years, going up and moving up to higher levels, pending his success at UTEP. Here's the thing, though. He's kind of had success everywhere he's been. So here's the story on Scotty Walden. All right. He's 34 years old right now. Okay. Picture this. Okay. You have a Division 3, Division 2 level quarterback, whatever divisions he played. He transferred to 3 different schools, learned 3 different offenses. Okay. Then you're looking at a guy that's like, you know what? Being an NFL quarterback is not for me. As someone who's transferred to 3 different lower level schools says. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to be a coach. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a coach. Well, he goes in, 22 years old, as a grad assistant. The offense at the school that he was at, which I don't have the name of it right. Oh, Sul Ross. Sorry, he was at Dordt College. Then he was at Hardin Simmons. And then he was at, Hardin Simmons. And then he was at Sul Ross. And at Sul Ross, he decided to be a grad assistant there. That offense, not doing so great. He was averaging like 207 yards a game. That's not very good. That's actually freaking terrible if you're an offense and you're only averaging 207 yards per game. That is terrible. So then the head coach there says, hey, Scotty, here you go. Here's the keys to the offense. This 22-year-old was given the keys to this offense. And all of a sudden, they were averaging 582 yards per game out of nowhere. So what happened? Scotty Walden, he's like, well, I took kind of the best plays from each of the schools that I played at and like just kind of made my own offense. At 22 years old, he kind of made his own playbook, made his own play sheet. He did it. So that's really impressive. He's been a couple different places. He went to East Texas Baptist as well to be coach there. Then he was a coordinator slash assistant there at Southern Miss, as you can see in the picture if you're watching on YouTube. And then he went to Austin P, and he was the head coach there. And that was the last place he went. So people were probably thinking like, why is UTEP hiring the head coach at Austin P, who's 34 years old? Well, here's the thing: if you're UTEP, what is the expectation? Right, the expectation. You haven't won 8 games since 2005. That's the expectation. Like it is difficult to win in Texas El Paso. It is difficult. You are way out west in the middle of nowhere, right? Like you have the schools in El Paso there, but then you get guys like coming out of El Paso. Uh, trying to think of examples. Was that is that Ruben Owens from El Paso? Oh, he's from El Campo. Gosh, mix those up all the time. But here's the thing: there's not a ton of talent out there in El Paso, and whatever talent there is, it gets scraped up by all these other big time schools in Texas. You do not have the powerhouse money and the facilities to recruit these other schools. So what do? You have to either A, hire someone from the high school ranks, right? Someone in West Texas, a very successful high school football coach, and you just someone that can just work the landscape, knows all these relationships with coaches, like, hey, who are some guys that aren't being taken? Who's a guy on your team that, and then you do that way through recruiting. That's how you build your team there. Or you go the offensive innovator route, right? And someone at a school like UTEP, you're not going to be able to hire an offensive innovator that's established. Like those are reserved for Power Five coordinators and head coaches at bigger schools.
Like they were not going to get Sean Lewis. They
You
were
were,
not
you were
going to
not
get
going to get Sean Lewis at UTEP. You were not going to do that, right? So what do? You have to go young, and his name is Scotty Walden, and we're going to see him coaching a high level team in years to come. I like him a lot. At Austin P, when he got there, that team was averaging 12 points of offense per game. Austin P was, I mean, historically it's a good program, right? But they were not doing good at all, averaging 12 points a game. Since he's been there, all 3 years he's been there, 2021, 2022, 2023, they've averaged 30 plus points per game, right? You have an innovative offense at a school like UTEP, which, by the way, has had talent. Like it has had NFL talent, right? On that team before. It just it's not deep. No, you haven't had a ton of good defense, but like if you can score more points than your opponent, you're looking pretty good. So I think this is a very, very good hire for UTEP. I'm unsure of the coaching staff that he's brought in and what that's going to look like, but I trust him a lot to possibly get it done at UTEP here. Like not a lot of coaches have done before.
Yeah, no, this is a super intriguing hire. I love the idea of it. Do I know if it's going to work out? Not 100%, but if it's going to work out, it's going to be a guy like Scotty Walden. Which is what you have to do. You have to throw darts until one sticks, right? He's going to put up points. I think he's going to be able to attract some transfers that are more about, hey, I'm all about business. I don't care about flash. I don't care about all this stuff in high school like I did in high school. I want to go back to Texas. I care about business and I care about development and being in an office system that's really flashy, being in a culture like Scotty Waldron. That's super, super awesome. I mean, if he hits, he's gone. If he misses, he's going to be a really good offense coordinator for somebody somewhere eventually. But yeah, I think I do like this. You mentioned the expectation at UTEP. It's really not there. They haven't really done much since the 60s when they joined Division One. I mean, they've been to what, 7 bowl games? They've won 8 bowl games. They've won 2 of them, and they haven't won a bowl game since 1967. So it's going to be about making a bowl game every couple years and staying with it and not getting embarrassed in the new Conference USA, where yes, Liberty is head and shoulders above everybody else, but New Mexico State needs a new coach. But Tennessee just got a new coach. A lot of teams out there. Rich Rod, I don't know how long he's going to be at Jacksonville State. Got a lot of things shaking up. You're also bringing in Kennesaw State. You're also bringing in Delaware in the year after. So it's going to be interesting there. I don't know how you rack up there with the best of the best, and you don't have to compete like that. You have to be mid tier. You have to just try to get up to that mid tier and eventually start competing in these Conference USA games. Schedule easy out of conference, win those, win a complete Conference USA games, and then make a bowl game. The problem is you can't really do that. You have to make some money somehow for your program, so you have to schedule these teams and go get slaughtered for $1 million. So yeah, I don't know. short term, it'll be interesting. Right, you lose Tyron Smith, you lose Deion Hawkins, Kelly Kariahe, right? I don't know. I'm sorry if I butchered that. 1,000-yard receiver for them, and then Justin Mayer's off to Colorado probably. Um, those are big time losses on the offensive side of the ball. But the thing is, if there's one side of the ball I trust to fix right away, it'll be offensively.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. I like this hire a lot, and I was checking out grades that like a lot of other analysts and podcasts where of course, yeah, I dabble a little bit, sue me in other media in college football, and I saw a lot of people giving very negative grades to this, and I could not believe it at all. I'm like, just I feel like these people like just hadn't done their due diligence or their research or an intern put a show packing on their desk. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I think Scotty Walton, we're gonna hear his name. Like he will be a big time name in a couple years. If it doesn't work out at UTEP, like you said, he will be a great offensive coordinator somewhere else, and he will just get another opportunity. He's so young. He's 34 years old. I mean, come on. Like, and we saw that, GJ Kinn over or Kinney over at Texas State. He's been working out, as a really young guy. It just like there's a chance that some of these young guys miss, but there's also a chance that some of these guys hit. The problem is if Scotty Walden hits, he's leaving, right? And then what do you do as a UTEP program? But if you can,
Gotta go find another
but
one.
yeah, if you can establish a pattern of winning, right, starting with Scotty Walden, then maybe you can look at something to hold on to for your program moving forward. I mean, again, we talked about the expectation. They haven't won 8 games since 2005, and they haven't won like more than 9 games since like 1988 or something like that. They haven't won like, yeah, what, 1988? They won 10 games. Awesome. Yeah. That's they haven't even won 9 games. That was their only 9 or 10 win season in the last literally almost 30 years.
Here's the
No,
deal.
30 years. Literally 30 years.
Question I ask is like, is it just UTEP? Like, what's holding them back? Why are they not winning at a good rate? Is if this misses out, is it going to be Scotty Walden or is it going to be UTEP as a program? Like, what is holding them back? Do we know?
I think it's resources and I think it's geography. Like, we normally talk about schools like where being in Texas helps a lot, right? The problem with El Paso, it's just not anywhere relevant in Texas. And I'm sorry for you El Paso people out there. It actually is a really good job market out there. There's a ton of people that work out there. A lot of businesses go there. It's cheap. It's nice taxes, whatever. But it is way out there. CD is right now looking up the geography because he does not know his Texas, but you can see it. It is all the way out there. It's basically in Mexico.
I knew well, it was New Mexico border. I knew it was over all the way over there. I didn't realize but you look at a map and you realize how far away. We talk about Lubbock being from West Texas. El Paso is another probably 7 more hours at least from Lubbock. So it is kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's hard to attract talent there. And coaching
Yeah.
staff's like, hey guys, but it's a beautiful town. Like I've never been there, but it looks awesome. Like
Yeah.
they've got a great bowl stadium.
Yeah.
The Sun Bowl is awesome.
And you're probably thinking like, oh, there's a ton of talent in Houston, right? Why don't they just recruit Houston? It is a 13-hour drive from Houston to El Paso. That is how far away it is. Like that's how big the state of Texas is. And when you're on the outskirts,
You might
right?
as well recruit LA at the same
You
like
might as
like
well
you're
recruit
you're
New
halfway between
Mexico.
the
You might
two.
as well recruit Arizona. Like you might as
Phoenix.
well recruit Nevada. Like that. It's hard. It is a hard job geographically to win at. So good luck to Scotty Walden. I think he's going to do great. My coaching grade for this is a B plus. I think he will potentially exceed expectations. I think for sure he will meet them because meeting an expectation, it's not even making a bowl game. It's winning 5 games. If that's your expectation, like I think he will definitely meet that, especially with some of these defenses that are going to see in the CUSA. But I just I think there's a really good chance that he could possibly exceed expectations, and I'll give it a B plus because like what's an A plus home run hire for UTEP, right? It's like it's hard to
Win the
say.
Mountain West maybe, but it's also like he's probably going to be gone once he does that. So that's the unfortunate
Yeah,
part. In the
winning the
reality, UTEP.
yeah, so it's like and winning the CUSA like with Liberty, like as a program in the CUSA, nearly impossible because they have just infinitely more resources than you. It is embarrassing if Liberty does not absolutely murder you. Right?
Yeah,
It's embarrassing. So it's like, what do you do? Just to meet expectations. If he consistently is making a bowl game at UTEP, that is a win.
that's exceeding
That's
expectations.
exceeding expectations. And once Colin Klein goes from Texas A&M, like as an A&M fan myself, Colin Klein goes, right? And I see Scotty Walden over here winning more football games than he should at UTEP. I would definitely be giving him a phone call to be the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M
And probably a significant pay raise
and
as
be
well.
paying him $2 million a year. So it's like, I don't know. I think he's on stud watch for sure for me. I will be closely monitoring his success the next couple of years because I think he will have it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go B plus here. It scares me to go A minus. Just I feel good about him for all the
He's
reasons you
young.
said. He's young. He might. This might not be his time to be a, Division I football coach in the FBS. But also like for all the reasons we mentioned, it's hard to win at this job here, UTEP. But if anyone can get it done, it's him, and that's why I love the idea of this hire. You also mentioned Austin PA who played Tennessee last past year, right? You guys remember that? It was tied at halftime. It was a
Yeah, it
10-point game in the
was.
fourth quarter, large part due to his coaching staff and his culture there. They don't. I mean, obviously, I don't expect them to go and compete against Texas and whoever they play in the out of conference. But if you can consistently outcoach other coaches in the CUSA, you can win some football games. And we saw interesting offenses. Look at Jack State. Looking at Mexico State in their first years in the CUSA, really came in and thrived, right? And so I don't expect UTEP to win 10 games in year one, but also like there is a plan in
Yeah.
precedents to be had there for someone to come in right away and win in the CUSA with a cool offense, with a bright young mind. And obviously the Sun Bowl is awesome. That stadium is awesome. College football would be awesome to
Yeah.
see, El Paso really, really thriving and buzzing because that stadium is awesome and everything that comes with El Paso.
Yeah. And what's weird though is like this team, if you actually look at it from head to toe, this year, that UTEP team was pretty talented. And they just completely underachieved under Dan O'Donnell. I mean, that's why he got fired. I mean, like, they were terrible. You had Gavin Harrison, who kind of a gunslinger, good talent. You talked about Tyron Smith, Aki, you got Deion Hankins at running back. You had an offensive line that was pretty experienced. I mean, it just nothing came together there. If Scotty Walden had talent like that on offense, he would have won, I think, a whole lot more games this year. So we'll see how they replenish that talent on offense. They can find some sneaky guys. But it'll be interesting. I don't know a ton about his staff at all, but I I wish all the best to Scotty Walden. I think he can succeed. Let's get into our transfer portal stuff now. Let's talk about it. We got 10 players. 10 players that we want to talk about. First up, Princely Uman Mielen. Unman Mielen. Coming from Florida. It's one of the top edge rushers in the portal by most websites, I believe. He's a very productive player, right? And Ole Miss is getting a very, very good player. And you're going to hear Florida fans saying, oh, he's kind of a locker room, he's kind of a culture problem. First of all, that's not a great thing to say about a 20, 21-year-old kid, right? Like, let's cool it. Also, second, do you think Ole Miss cares at all? No, they're getting a talented football player. He's going to play very nice edge for them. He had 7 sacks this year. I mean, what else? What else do you want? He's highly rated out of the portal, and the coaching staff, aka Pete Golden, was like, "Hey, let's get some talent in here," and they got talent. If anything, this is just like shows you that Ole Miss can bring in talent into the transfer portal.
Which we've seen that kind of come to fruition this past off season. But also like find me a fan base that has some good things to say about a guy leaving in the portal. I get understand that some of these things may be true that's going around the message boards, but also like understand, take everything with a grain of salt. Context is everything. If Pete Golding believes and Lane Kiffin believes he can come in and play there and adapt to their culture, I'm in for it too. I think they understand their need and they're seeing an opportunity window here for them to really, really do some things in college football this next year with everyone returning and with the transfer portal haul they are getting and being really aggressive with. I like this. I love this here. Will it work out? I don't know, but I feel pretty good. A guy that you've seen play pretty darn well in the SEC, stays in the SEC, and you can't find 6'5", 260 like that much often. A guy with incredible tools and whatnot. So yeah, I love it for all this.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Big fan. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the explosiveness, he's got the bend. I think he's a very, very solid player. Probably could have gone to the NFL, decided not to. Decided to play one more year of college football. Here he is on Ole Miss. It's gonna be very interesting. I think Florida. This is a big loss for Florida I think I mean last year we saw I mean up the middle they kind of got shredded in the run game. I mean that's what happens when you lose Javon Dexter. Not that they used Javon Dexter correctly as a staff anyways, but this is a big loss I think for them. So I don't know what they're gonna do at edge after Princely Umanmielen. I don't have their depth chart in front of me. I don't have those guys' names. But what are you gonna do? I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean the window for Ole Miss is here. It's kind of a and I believe we'll have another guy on today's list that is going to Ole Miss as well that we're talking about. But this is definitely an experiment that we're gonna see. Like, can you build a team out of the transfer portal and make it to the college football playoffs? Because it looks like and you could argue that Washington was kind of did that a little bit, and Florida State did that a little bit, and Oregon had a little bit of success with it, and USC. But like, it feels like the absolute core of this Ole Miss team, the entirety of its core, aside from Quinshon Judkins, is basically from the transfer portal, right? You had Caden Prescorn, Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, Princely Umanmielen, Walter Nolan. I mean, Tyler Barron. I mean, there are McDonald. There's like the entire core of this team is all transfers. So this is a crazy experiment that we're about to see happen for us.
Yeah, you mentioned or did Florida's D line coach is over at A&M now, right?
Sean Spencer.
Yeah, so that's another reason why he's probably in the portal, along with trying to find maybe some more wins. Maybe he doesn't believe in Billy Napier in the future of this program for Florida. They're bringing in a talented recruiting class. LJ McCray probably has to play right away and figure it out there. He's balling out right down there. In is he in Orlando or is he in San Antonio? I don't know. He's in one of those, but he's playing pretty damn well. But yeah, it's a tough loss for Florida, like you mentioned. Ole Miss gets a boost, gets a talented player that they don't really have all the time in their room. It's a body that Pete Golding can really use to his advantage, and hopefully it leads to some wins and success on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, and people are gonna look at this and be like, "Well, Pete Golding's gonna use him wrong, right?" Bama fans are gonna be in here talking about that. It's like, how many guys did Pete Golding send to the NFL from your teams? Like,
Yeah,
like that. There's a reason why people want to play for him. So I think maybe yeah, sure he makes some mistakes in game, yeah, whatever, but he will develop players and he will recruit high level talent. So can't blame the guy for trying. Let's talk about Caden Green, a guy that people were shocked was in the portal, offensive lineman for Oklahoma, true freshman. And you know what? A true freshman that was also appointed a captain part of the year. So like that does not happen very often. That does not happen very often. Well, it's kind of a mystery as to why he went in the portal. I think we'll talk about a rumor, right? And we're not going to fuel the fire, but NIL might have had a lot to do this, but also he's from Missouri. So if you want to speculate about NIL, it's also speculate like maybe he just want to be close to his family at all. Maybe he saw the success that Eli Drinkwitz had. Maybe he had a good relationship with that coaching staff. Maybe he didn't have a very good experience in Oklahoma, right? There's a lot of things that could have been going on right here. 6'5", 316. This guy, I think he's pretty good. On PFF, he didn't grade out all that well, but like how many true freshman linemen did grade out well this year, right? You had a guy like Chase Bisson on Texas A&M, was a freshman All-American. He was terrible on PFF, and he was also terrible to watch. He was not very good, right? So it's like true freshman offensive linemen are like ones that are genuine starters are kind of a dime, like just gems. Those guys are gems. You had Georgia Tech had one over there on their offensive line, but you're not going to see him every single day. Even Caden Proctor had his struggles at Bama.
especially early in the year. You saw Caden Green kind of got thrusted in the action with a couple things happened there. He played Texas and then down the stretch here. 568 snaps though as a true freshman. It's pretty darn good. And also like you mentioned, these guys are just so valuable in the portal. A true freshman with Power Five experience and has the tools and body to play well. I mean, this is a huge get for Drink and staff in Missouri. Who doesn't need more O linemen and a body like this in their room? Really special guy. Love to see what he can do there. Obviously, going back to his hometown, where a lot of people they're bringing in a lot of talent there from Missouri. Toriano Price is joining them as well, another Missouri guy. So it's some, I guess he's St. Louis, but regardless,
It's
like
Missouri.
yeah,
Well,
that's
actually,
pretty much
it's
Missouri.
Illinois, but
It's
like it's
St. Louis
Missouri.
area, so I consider it a hometown for them. So yeah, I love it for Missouri. Obviously, Oklahoma is losing a ton on the O line. Caden Green was a guy
Ton.
that they were really banking on that was going to come back and be a staple for them. on the interior of that O line. Green played, I believe he played a little bit of tackle too at Oklahoma, right? He started as tackle, he kind of moved the guard. I think he can do both. I assume Missouri sees him as a guard, but regardless, so to have that flexibility, to have that experience, to have 2 years of eligibility at least until he probably enters the NFL draft, to be a top recruit, you don't see many guys like this. You really don't. And you can see by his suitors and by maybe the NIL attractions that he got, it's pretty darn worth it. And that tells me a lot and how good and how well respected this player is in the college football community.
Yeah, not just like respect as a player. Like if you were being appointed a captain as a true freshman on that Oklahoma team, like that's a testament to your character as well. So, people want to get mad. Like there were people like Oklahoma fans were so mad they were like giving his family like bad reviews on like Yelp, their local family business. What a terrible thing to do. This is a very, very good young man that is going to be a key component for a really, really good team in Missouri. He will likely be a captain because he is a natural born leader. This is a very good kid, right? He is going to be awesome. So, and Missouri's got a chance to really compete these next couple of years. I'm sure he's excited about that in the SEC. Oklahoma, of course, is entering the SEC as well. So it'll be very, very interesting to see that matchup when he ultimately has to play Oklahoma again.
Yeah, they meet up in November 9th in Missouri, in Columbia, and just, why are you doing that if you're Oklahoma fans? I get that that's not the whole representation of your fan base, but it's a really bad look. Really tough for that family and for that kid. You mentioned really good family, really good kid. And just wait till he's absolutely mauling guys like David Stone in the run
Hey,
there
yeah,
in on November 9th when he is a baller. I mean it's 2024. Like this is what college football is. Like even like good players on good teams are leaving the portal. And like if you can't, for whatever reason, if you want to go home, if you get tampered with, yada yada yada, it happens nowadays. You gotta adjust and don't be salty. Don't be upset and trying to ruin this family's business and livelihood, and just be happy for him because he got a payday. He got an upgrade, and he's gonna really thrive at Missouri and be really grateful to a team and a community that probably loves him and excited to welcome back home.
let's talk LeJohntay Wester. Now, if you're a college fantasy football guy, you know exactly who this is. This was like the number one G5 wide receiver in college fantasy football this year. Absolute Studies, FAU's all-time leading receiver in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Yeah, this guy's kind of a stud. A little bit on the smaller end, but that doesn't take away from his explosivity, right? His talent, his route running, his contested catch ability. He's very, very good. Scored an 83.4 on PFF, whatever that means. All right, 18th among receivers. But I'm telling you that this is a very, very good football player. I'm just trying to paint this picture for you. Pitt, Auburn, Arkansas, Colorado have all offered. Yeah, the favorite for a lot of people are Auburn and Arkansas, which I also understand as well. But he also sneakily replied on Twitter to Shador Sanders. So is that a hint? I don't know. That wide receiver room in Colorado is already loaded. I mean, he's a junior, so I believe that he's got 2 years of eligibility left after this year. Actually, no.
He's got one more, I think.
He's only got one more. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Might be waiting for Auburn to land a quarterback. I would too.
As are a lot of people.
I would too. Well, Cam Coleman didn't wait, but here's the thing: Cam Coleman's going to be there for another 3 years, so I don't blame him for wanting to go there. Hugh Freeze will eventually get his quarterback, but LeJohntay Webster, very, very, very good player. I don't know when exactly he'll commit. I believe Ohio State has also offered two. Is there any other ones?
Yeah, Penn State and Baylor. You mentioned Colorado. I think he's got a lot of options here. He's going to take his time. I don't think he's in any rush. I believe he's graduated from FAU. Doesn't really have to take classes and whatnot to really get going with his degree and all that other stuff. So, or his eligibility, really. And so, yeah, he's a smaller guy, really gadget guy, super productive. Can maybe do return specialist as well.
Yeah, he was very, very good special teamer. He was I believe he was all American or sorry, all American Athletic Conference special teams, right? This year. But
Yeah.
he was very, very good
He's
in that
got
aspect.
Tom Herman is really going to miss, and he's a guy that they relied on a lot, even with the quarterback struggles with Casey Thompson, bringing in new guys and whatnot. LeJohntay Webster was their best friend, and he was awesome. And sucks for him, but we'll see. He's from Palmetto, Florida. Will he stay in state? Will he go back out of state? Who knows with all that other stuff? But he's got it. They put in the slot, and he can do a lot of things for you. And wherever he ends up, he's gonna be really damn good.
Yeah, I really like him a lot. In like NFL, if you're an NFL guy, like you're in the NFL draft stuff, like LeJohntay Wester's not going to go super high right next year because of his size that limits him. But as a special teamer, that he can add a lot of value. One as a gunner, two as a return man. So I think he can potentially add a lot of value for a team in the future. So I'm very excited to see where he lands. I know college fantasy football community has their eyes peeled for this one. It's going to be very, very interesting to see where he ends up. Let's talk Evan Stewart. Number one wide receiver in the portal, number two player in the portal for a lot of places. Former 5-star, former number one wide receiver in the country coming out of high school. Yeah, he's gone. Jimbo Fisher leaves. Elijah Robinson leaves. Texas A&M brings in Colin Klein. Evan Stewart says no thanks. I'm going to go somewhere else. All the teams that you thought though that he might go to, right? Alabama. Thought he might go to Texas. Feels like all those teams are out on him for whatever reason. And what's left? Some very good teams though. You thought Tennessee, apparently they're out and talk. They're not talking to him anymore. Ole Miss is still on the table. Oregon's on the table. Is FSU on the table? I don't know. I mean, he can go anywhere he wants, right? He's going to get a solid NIL deal. He is. He's got a nice brand for himself. He does a lot of good stuff on TikTok. So but regardless of all the off the field stuff, he's a very, very talented, very, very talented player, right? He shines. Things he can improve on, of course, catching traffic, right? Yeah, dropping some of those contested catches, but he's also made hella great catches contested wise, right? You're looking at games like against Alabama last year when he absolutely mossed Terrion Arnold, made him look silly. I mean, Evan Stewart is an insanely talented player, and he is the best wide receiver in the transfer portal for a very good reason. He is so talented. He's a former soccer player. He could have played collegiate soccer if he wanted to. He could have been on the United States. If he wanted to, and he really trained for it, he probably would end up being on the men's national team at some point. He's got insane footwork, light feet, good hands, good vision. I mean, he's a very good football player. And Texas A&M will be missing a lot. Now that wide receiver room for Texas A&M is pretty deep, as it is, uh, including the players that they got in the transfer portal. But like I said, very, very heavily talented player that unfortunately has been injured this year. Now, why did he leave? He put some stuff out on Twitter, some speculation that the medical staff kind of mismanaged his injury and didn't really tell him exactly what was going on accurately. And, that you lose some trust there. I get it. Go do what's best for you. So good luck to Evan Stewart. Do you have any insight on where you might land?
I don't think really anyone knows right away. You have you kind of have the classic NIL suitors in here: Ole Miss, big spenders; Oregon, big spenders; USC, big spenders; Florida State's in there. Even Washington, they threw them in there because of the success they've had this year passing the football with those wide receivers. And obviously, Stewart would love to be a guy like Roma Dunze to be featured like that. Obviously, Will Rogers. I don't know if he quite moves the needle like Michael Penix does, but needless to say, though, Ryan Grubb and staff there, I'm sure, has a pretty attractive offering to Evan Stewart. Yeah, Ole Miss to me, I feel like I just have a gut feeling it's going to be there. I don't wherever he ends up, like you mentioned, he's going to be a stud. There's some other A&M players that are already going to Ole Miss, so maybe he follows them there. I don't think he ends up anywhere near Syracuse with Elijah Robinson and all the A&M connections there. I don't think he'll end up there. I don't think he quite wants to play with Common and whatnot. And if he had frustrations with Max Johnson, he's probably not going to love Common And but yeah, he's an uber talented player, 5-star for a reason, stud in the portal. Probably has one more year before the NFL draft. He's not the biggest guy. Like he's listed at 6 feet. I feel like he's 5'11", 5'10", not super. Only 175, not super big. But I love the way he high points the football. You mentioned his catching traffic is not there yet, but he's working on it. I do like at times it flashes. He can get open, run every route. He's a tremendous football
He's
player.
so good.
And he was A&M's best receiver for the past 2 years, coming on campus as a freshman. He's everything that they wanted to be. Obviously, you look at a guy like Zion Branch and what he did for USC this past year. Evan Stewart in a similar way. is just so explosive, so good for you. And to have a true number one like that is it's just so valuable. And we see that in the modern passing day in the modern college football. Like this is everything. Having a wide receiver one like that. There's reason why Ole Miss wants him so bad. There's reason why Oregon wants him so bad. I think with Ole Miss, he would be such a nice fit alongside Trey Harris, wouldn't he?
I would hate it a lot as an A&M fan. I would hate it a lot.
That tells you how good that tells you how good he is. If he makes your rivals a little bit nervous for sure, like that means he's a damn good player.
Or I just don't like Lane Kiffin as an A&M fan. Either way.
Well, yeah.
Either way. Let's talk about Matthew Golden. You get a guy like Willie Fritz to come in, right? And, you know, he's had some success with wide receivers, but in his offense, he doesn't particularly throw the ball a ton, right? Doesn't particularly throw, or at least the way that his staff likes to operate on offense. I mean, you had guys like Darnell Mooney drafted. You had Chris Brazzell, of course, the success that he's had, and he'll be at Tennessee. But Matthew Golden, uh, it's at Houston. He played very well. He's the gem of that class a couple years ago. We talked about it in our previews for this year. The guy to watch out for popping off, and yes, he did pop off. Look on the stat sheet, he only had like 400 yards receiving, but special teams wise, he was a monster for them as well. That's also what you're getting. You're just getting an explosive player that's just very, very good at football, and I like him a lot. This is a great get for Texas to get him, snag him from Houston, and you know, I think a lot of it has to do with the Willie Fritz hire. I think a lot of it because you look at a guy like Dalton Carnes too, who's also a true freshman wide receiver for them. He saw the sight of Willie Fritz coming in there, and he said, "I want out," and he goes to Eric Morris over there in North Texas. Uh, I think Matthew Golden is really good. I think this was Texas's guy that they wanted in the portal in terms of like the kind of explosivity right after the catch, kind of Xavier Worthy like in some ways. I really, really like Matthew Golden as a football player.
Yeah, no, I think what he's gonna do. You mentioned the stat sheet didn't really pop. What he does though for you and for your defense is being 6 feet, being 190, but very explosive, very fast. And you saw that in the return game. He's gonna be a guy that Sark's gonna love to use. I mean, and he's gonna really love to use him. And obviously, you talk about a need. I mean, this year they probably have one of the better rooms, offensive rooms in college football. You're probably bringing back Jonathan Brooks next year. Don't know how healthy he will be to start the year. So you're gonna probably have to throw the ball. And with Quinn Ewers returning, I assume no AD Mitchell. Xavier Worthy's gone already. Jatavian Sanders, I assume, is also the NFL draft. You're gonna have a lot of needs there. And I think Isaiah Nayer's in the portal. I think Whittingham's out of eligibility.
Rely on Jonte Cook and Matthew Golden.
And Ryan Wingo coming in there as a true freshman. There are snaps to be had there. And I think Matthew Golding saw the opportunity. He saw what AD Mitchell did at Texas. And was like, I want a part of that. And I think he will do so. I think he will play his best football this year as a junior for the Texas Longhorns. It's nice to stay in state for him. He's a guy from Houston, not too far away from Austin, and he can really get it done there for the Longhorns this coming season.
Yeah, I agree, and it's good timing for Texas too. You need some talent. I mean, this was because offensive, weapons. I know you talked about the other day when we were talking about previews for national championship and recaps those college football semifinal games that, this was the year for Texas in terms of like, having all the explosive players that they did on offense, but like also like Matthew Golden is so explosive. Like he can get it done if you watch some of those returns that he had as a special teamer as well. That's the kind of player you're getting. You're just getting a very, very good player when he touches the football. So the problem is, can you get him the football? Well, Steve Sarkisian is one of, if not the best coaches to have on your staff if you want one of your receivers to be explosive, right? I mean, we saw him do it with Devontae Smith. He said, "Yeah, let me just have this guy win a Heisman." That's what he does. That's what he does with good, talented receivers, explosive receivers. He says, "Yeah, I'm gonna find ways for him to touch the ball."
Yeah, and under 11, sub 11 time in the 100-meter dash back in high school. I mean, verified speed. You see it on the field as well. Is he going to win a Heisman? Probably not. Is he going to be really productive and really good for Texas? Is this a great move for him? You mentioned who better than Steve Sarkisian. I love the fit both ways. This is a guy that a lot of teams wanted as soon as he entered the portal. A lot of teams wanted out of high school. It was a big time win for Houston. It sucks that you mentioned Willie Fritz couldn't hold on to him. Don't know if his offense really fits a guy like Golden or for Golden. If he sees that, it's a really attractive spot to be, which is tough for Houston fans for sure. But yeah, I love this all around. This is one of those that's like, yeah, this makes a ton of sense. As soon as he entered the portal, it's kind of like, oh, is he gonna have at Texas? And it just happened kind of quickly and whatnot. And I think Texas, as they're looking in the future, they love a guy like Matthew Golden to come in state guy. Maybe they missed on him coming out of high school. Houston's hung on to him, whatever they did, and now Texas can really reap the benefits in year 3 and beyond with Matthew Golden.
Let's talk about a very productive edge rusher. Let's talk about Fadil Diggs. Moving from Texas A&M to Syracuse. If you don't know, Texas A&M had one of the best pass rushers, especially on the defensive line, in the entire country. All right, they got home on quarterbacks, almost better than anyone in the entire country. They had one of the most tackles for loss in the country of any other team. Their defensive line was very, very good. And among the most productive players in the pass rush on that entire defensive line was Fadil Diggs. He's headed to Syracuse, following his defensive line coach, Elijah Robinson, who will be the defensive coordinator there at Syracuse. This is a very good talent to add for Syracuse, and kind of a tough loss for Texas A&M. You know, this is a guy I thought legitimately was going to go to the NFL. You know, like Mike Clemens style. I thought he might go day 3. You know, get some reps. He's very good. Guys, Alabama wanted him. All right, Alabama wanted him, and they wanted him bad. Georgia wanted him, right? But who wins? Syracuse.
It's paying off. The staff is paying off right now.
The staff, the Fran Brown era is starting to pay dividends already. Now you're only going to get him for 1 year. So whoop-de-doo. But guess what? He's just very, very good. 6'5", 250 pounds. He's just really good. He's just really good. In Alabama's, I think in the Alabama game, like he had like 3 sacks. The Alabama game the year before, he was a monster. I mean, he's been a monster his entire career. Or sorry, the year before Alabama game, I believe, is when he actually popped off big time. But he also, I think, did well this year against Alabama. I think he's just a stud. He is just a stud. A&M is losing a lot on their defensive line, and that includes Fidel Diggs. That's why it's an even bigger loss because you don't really know what you're going to have as in terms of, pure pass rushers. But Fidel Diggs is just very good.
Yeah,
very good.
No, he's a guy that with all the talent in that room and all the 5 stars that came in. No, he was a top 200 player himself. He's no slouch recruiting wise in the high school ranks, but he was a guy that just kept shining, and they just couldn't take him off the field because of how good he was. Originally from New Jersey, from that Northeast, coming back home with Rob to go to Syracuse, and they got to replace some guys there up front, and he's going to be right first in line to do so and really change the culture there. I love his game. I absolutely love his game. I love his relentless ability to get to the pass rusher. Even in run defense, I love him too. This is a guy that's going to be huge for Syracuse up front. And obviously, you mentioned all the other teams that wanted him badly. Shows you how good and respected the player is. If the teams he is playing turn on and want him bad as well after scouting him, after having to game plan for him. And yeah, I do think it'll hurt because I'm sure it benefited him a little bit because he played out next to a bunch of other studs on that D line. But I don't think it takes away from who he is as a player. I think it'll all translate to the ACC and to Syracuse, where he will really dominate in his last year of college football before heading off to the NFL.
Yeah, he's just a very good player.
What
This is a great guy.
It's a big time loss for A&M too on the edge. That's kind of their position of need. I mean, they have a ton of 5 stars up the middle. I think potentially on the interior defensive line, but on the edge there, that's where you're a little thin. You got to rely on some guys like Anai White and others, right?
Yeah, Malik Silla. I mean, you got some guys, Mark Stewart. I mean, there's sure plenty of guys, but none as proven as Fidel Diggs for sure.
Well, and that's why they're going to the portal and to getting out a guy, which we'll talk about in a little bit here soon.
Let's talk about Penny Boone. Penny Little Bus Boone, originally hailing from Maryland, transfers over to Toledo. And what did you do over at Toledo? Well, about 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Penny Boone's. Now the thing is, what we did learn from the bowl game is that offense is just good with Penny Boone or without Penny Boone. So not that it draws some red flags or anything, but what kind of did draw some red flags for me though is like the final 3 schools that he's down to, right? Okay, red flags meaning like how can he improve a team, right? Like, is this going to be a good addition for a team? The teams that, are in his final three are Florida State, already has now they don't have a lot of depth. They lost a lot of their depth in the running back room, but they have a very good running back in that room already, as you saw in the Louisville game. If you failed to watch that game, um, Louisville as a team, we know that they have good running backs in that room as well, and Kentucky, who just signed Chip Trayanum. Now, in all those places, you can excel as a running back, but will he be the starter automatically at any of those places? I don't think so necessarily. Regardless, he's a very, very good talent. He's an 86.1 grade on PFF, which I'll say it again. Take that with what you will, right? I'm just trying to paint a picture that he is a very, very good player. Okay. So, CD, you got any thoughts on Penny Little Bus, or sorry, Baby Bus Boone?
He's a massive running back. I mean, 242 pounds. Trying to tackle a guy like that is brutal, especially in the MAC on Tuesday night. Like what? Or Wednesday
He
night.
moves. He moves a little bit.
He does. I mean, he was a highly rated guy out of high school. Ended up at Maryland. Right. Didn't do his best work there. Ends up at Toledo. Very successful the past couple of years. And yeah, you mentioned those three teams. I think he sees himself as like a power back, and I think those teams realize like the value that has, and that the carries that he will get and show and put on tape for the NFL. Like, hey, if you need 2 yards, and that's a real need in the NFL as a backup running back, a guy like Penny Boone is the perfect guy for it. And I think he'll put his skills to the test. Sounds like he's visiting Louisville this weekend. That time you're watching, he probably would have just visited them. For Louisville, hopefully you can lock him down. And we know that they like to use both their running backs too. We had Garendo and Jawar Jordan split a lot of carries this year. I think Boone can do the same there with Garendo coming back. So yeah, he's got 1 year left, so he's got to make this transfer count. That does surprise me a little bit that he's not either sticking around Toledo, where we've seen G5 running backs go right to the NFL and have a lot of success and even be drafted a little bit high. So we'll see. I do love him though. I do think what he did for that offense was pretty special. And obviously, they're gonna miss him there at Toledo. But yeah, I would have loved to see him end up somewhere where he would have been a feature back because he's a really special talent, and I love to see him get all the carries he can.
He's your classic workhorse.
Yeah,
He is your old school workhorse back. Which, yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I think he can have an immediate impact anywhere he goes, but like you said, is he going to be the number one guy at any of these three schools? It's hard to say, but very, very good talent. I'm excited to see. College fantasy football players are disappointed, of course, but that just means, I mean, there'll be another guy at Toledo next year. There will be another guy.
but you also have, I think, what is interesting about it though is if you have a 1-2 punch like Chip Trayanum, like Penny Boone, like sorry, like Garendo and Penny Boone, like we have physical backs, and you lean on defenses. Come that fourth quarter, trying to tackle 6'1", 240, especially with fresh legs, it's not going to be fun and not going to be easy for the defenses. So you see how badly these teams want him because of the added benefit he can have for you and having multiple running backs. We've seen all the injuries happen just at that position alone in college football. Jonathan Brooks, among others, that have gone down. So you need to have a pair and a spare, like they always say. And he's a guy that's going to be really welcomed wherever he ends up at.
Let's talk about Jamon Dumas Johnson. Jamon Dumas Johnson is a very good football player. He has experience playing in the college football playoffs. He is what is he a senior, junior? I mean, he's had a lot of snaps under his belt as a linebacker. Okay. He's a good football player. Problem is, got a little hurt this year. Okay. Freshman CJ Allen steps up, and all of a sudden you start to lose snaps. And that happens with really talented players sometimes. But if you can start a linebacker for Georgia, you can be a very, very good piece for Kentucky. This is once again another one of those Mark Stoop just gem gets in the portal, right?
Yeah.
Guy that locked down pretty quickly. When Jamon Dumas Johnson won the portal, he pretty quickly landed at Kentucky. I think he's gonna be really good there. I think this is a gigantic benefit, a huge boost to Kentucky. I think he's only got one more year of eligibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tough to see that, but guess what? Still a very, very good football player. So I'm excited to see what he does at Kentucky. Any thoughts?
No, I love this for both fits here. I think it's a fresh start was needed at Georgia because of all the talent there. And I think his skill sets can really be utilized at Kentucky. and a guy with college football playoff experience is obviously welcomed anywhere in the country. And Demond Johnson's great person, great culture guy, leader in that locker room for Georgia. And that's a big time loss. This is one that was very surprising for a lot of teams. I get it, he battled injuries. I get it, it's a crowded room, but I thought he was going to stick out there and compete and continue to play well and be developed by Georgia. But obviously, he ends up fellow SEC East rival and Kentucky, huge land for them. Love what um, Stoops and them are doing there in the portal, what they do with their no nonsense business like mentality is like, hey, if you want to come here and be developed again and be sent out to the NFL for a year, come to Kentucky. There's no flash, no nothing. It's all meat and potatoes. And a guy like Jamon Dumas Johnson, that's what he was looking for in the portal, and that's why it was so quick. And yeah, it was a big time get for both these players, and obviously Kentucky will love to have him on their defense instead of having to play against him at Georgia.
Yeah, if you're looking at PFF, he did not really grade out all that well on PFF, but come on. He's a talented football player. We know that. Let's use our eyeballs here. Let's use our eyeballs. He's a very good football player.
He moves very well at 6'1", 245 too. I was expecting him to be a little bit lighter than that, but he's listed at 245. He moves very well, and obviously, if you're at Georgia, you have to at linebacker because there are three other guys in that room that also do. So yeah, he's a special football player for him.
Just about Nick Scourton. Scourton? I don't know. I might have to start learning his name though. Pretty good. This was one of, if not the best edge rushers in all of the Big Ten this past year. Insanely productive, large individual. He hails from none other than Bryan, Texas. Where is Bryan, Texas, you ask? Well, it is right next to College Station. In fact, they call it the Bryan College Station area. So a couple schools that he's been visiting. He visited A&M the other day. He's going to be visiting FSU, Mizzou, and Oklahoma. So to say that this guy is sought after in the portal is an understatement. He's going to be a gigantic value add wherever he goes. I think he's a monster. As a Texas A&M fan, I desperately want Nick Scourton, especially after Fidel Diggs leaves. Would be giant. He would get immediate playing time. I think that's a very good fit for him. I also think Oklahoma's a very good fit for him. I think Brett Venables could do a lot with him as well. I think at FSU, a ton of reps is opened, especially you saw the success of Jared Verse. I think like all of these landing spots that he's considering are very, very good potential spots. Crystal ball was put out by Steve Wilt Fong for him to go to Texas A&M. It's hard to know the transfer portal, like especially when he hasn't visited the other three schools. Like he hadn't even visited the other three schools yet, and he put in the crystal ball for Texas A&M. I get it that he's close to his family, but
It sounds like he extended his visit, which is typically a very good sign if you are transferring there. So it sounds like things are kind of getting wrapped up into good things for A&M fans.
so any thoughts? I mean, you're a Big Ten guy. He played Minnesota.
He's a damn good player. He's been awesome. Formerly Nick Caraway, a guy that obviously was really good a year ago, even as a freshman. Yeah, it's they're gonna miss him at Purdue. I know Ryan Walters and staff wanted to keep him on. They're losing a lot of talent in the portal. They're bringing some guys in for sure, but he's a guy that's tough to miss out, especially a big time recruiting win, going down to Texas, getting a 4-star like that, All American Bowl participant, and a guy with 2 more years of eligibility. The thing is, if he plays like we assume he's gonna play, he'll probably be in the NFL draft come next May and come next April. So, or yeah, I guess 2025. April. So we'll see. I do love the fit here. He's a big body edge, which is really interesting. A little bit different than Fadil Diggs, but I think with Mike Elko and the scheme there, Sean Spencer, I think it'll really help them, especially beefing up against the run in a pretty physical and empowering SEC conference that they're going to be joining or that they're going to be playing in this next fall.
Yeah, this would be a massive gift for Mike Elko and staff. I think this is like one of those, not a momentum getter, but it kind of like all right, like here we go, start of the Mike Elko era, actually using the transfer portal and getting it done. So that'd be a giant gift for them. I think Oklahoma could use him a lot. Like I said already, I repeat myself. Any of these places, I think, would be a very, very good fit for him. I think he's not necessarily because like every school is a good fit for him, but like he could be a good fit for any school.
Yeah.
Right? Like he is that good of a football player, but he will make an impact anywhere he goes. I mean, he dominated. He dominated defensive line or offensive line.
Also shows you his athleticism, right? He had 130 coverage snaps, right? At 6'4", 260, 280, hovering around there this year. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty incredible that they're able to do that with him and kind of disguise some coverages and maybe some blitzes and gives you the flexibility on defense that Mike Elko loves.
Yeah, I'm all over it as an A&M fan. Let's talk about, I believe, our last guy we're going to talk about today. Yep. Name's Jamoy Macklin. Okay. Very good football player. Another one of those gems going to Kentucky. Played some very, very good football for North Texas over there with Eric Morris. Over 1,000-yard receiver, 11 touchdowns. Uh, he was highly sought after in the portal. I know. I mean, I'm a Texas A&M fan. I saw his name on the offer list of receivers that Texas A&M offered. He's pretty close by. I think this is a giant loss for North Texas as a team that loses Chandler Rogers. You lose Jamoy Macklin. Like, what's Eric Morris going to do? Who's going to play quarterback for them next year? I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is that Jamoy Macklin can make an immediate impact in that wide receiver room that already includes Barry Brown. You got a running back room that includes Chip Trayanum, possibly Penny Boone. Brock Vandegrift is going to benefit from all of this. I don't know that Kentucky's necessarily a good fit. I think that Kentucky got a good get, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting that he chose there after all the offers, Colorado, Penn State, among others that really wanted the guy. A&M, you mentioned, really talented player, 5'11", 185, over 1,000 yards in 2023. Some big play receptions, 11 touchdowns. Originally committed to Missouri out of high school. Now he's coming back to the SEC after a couple years at North Texas. Sounds like he'll be a boundary guy for them. They might move Barry and Brown to the slot, and keep Macklin on the boundary where he's really comfortable, where he's been really successful the past couple years. Yeah, and Brock Vandegrift's the guy that's the winner here. Like he's got a really nice pieces around him. They got to fix the O line so they can give Vandegrift time to be able to throw a ball downfield to a guy like Jamoy Macklin and use those weapons they have on Kentucky. Yeah, I like it though. But Kentucky's done some good things with some receivers in the NFL draft
Sure.
in the past couple of years, and I think he'll be the next one for them. And he sees the value that Kentucky could bring to him.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this game. I think he's really, really good. I mean, like, when I was going over all these guys, I'm looking at film and I'm like, all right, this guy can separate very well. He
Yeah,
can separate very well. Got some burners on him. He's got good hands. I think this guy's like you said, I mean, originally played in Missouri. I mean, just should have he should be playing Power 5 football.
yeah.
He should be playing Power 5 football, and he will be back to playing Power 5 football. Not just Power 5 football, playing in the SEC.
I
So,
believe he has 2 years of eligibility too, with the way COVID worked, and then he redshirted in 2021. I think he can. I think he'll have 2 years if he wants it. Obviously, if things go well, like he thinks it will, like Kentucky thinks it will, he'll probably be off to the NFL. But a guy that gives him at least 2 years of eligibility, or at least 1 year of eligibility with two more possible. So yeah, this is a big time gift for them.
absolutely. And that'll be it for our episode 51 of the Redshirt Sophomore. Thank you for joining us on our coaching carousel and transfer portal endeavors. If you guys look, we have a simple rule here. If you guys like the content, like the video, right? I would please consider subscribing. We're gonna be pumping off stuff these next couple weeks and for the entire off season, because now after Monday, when this is posted, it'll officially be the off season, which is so sad. So sad. But thank you guys so much. We appreciate all your support. Keep checking us out. Stay excited because there's a lot of moving parts this postseason and off season. So I'm excited. Make sure you guys also, if you're watching this video, this will come out in the morning on Monday. So make sure you check out, if you're already up and early, check out our national championship preview video as well. So because that game's going on tonight if you're watching this on that Monday. Thank you guys so much. CD, anything from you?
No, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the content today and continue to subscribe and like and share the videos. We love the support. Comment, interact with us. We love hearing from you guys. And let us know if we missed anybody. Let us know if you want to hear some moves and some guys that we want to talk about. And we'll obviously love to communicate with you guys and work with you guys as well.
And we will see you guys in the next one.